Right.
Good morning. We'll call this meeting to order for a public hearing for ordinance 20-002 and ordinance providing for the automatic direct deposit of salary or wages into employees' accounts. Do we have anybody who wishes to provide any testimony? Mr. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping maybe you had some comments from the public there, but
I don't have any comments.
we have discussed this. So I guess I'm against this ordinance, to just make it clear to the commission this morning. I guess I'm considered one of those old dinosaurs there that I don't trust the banking systems. My law enforcement career spanning almost 25 years now. I've had several opportunities in which to respond to, investigate, and take reports of identity theft, and as a result of disinformation that is provided to employers and provided to individuals, sometimes just vendors. So I'll get right into it. Imagine a consumer opening his or her banking statement in hopes of booking that last-minute spring break vacation for the family and noticing thousands of dollars of unauthorized transactions. Not only is the vacation jeopardized, but also potentially the consumer's identity. For millions of Americans each year, the scenario has become a scary reality. A 2018 online survey conducted by the Harris Poll indicates that nearly 15 million consumers experienced identity theft in 2017, with stolen funds totaling more than $16.8 billion. With numbers that staggering, everyone likely has someone in his or her family or immediate family, or who knows somebody in their workplace who has fallen victim to identity theft. I can remember just a few years ago when the Sierra County Treasurer, Terry Copson, received an email from then Chairman Ken Lyon requesting a money transfer in excess of $40,000. As it turned out, this was an attempted cyber attack on Commissioner Lyon's official email account. Since that incident, I think it would be safe to assume that every official email within Sierra County has become a victim of spoofing. If you don't know what spoofing is, that means that's somebody that has identified themselves as you. You look up on the email string and it looks as though the email has come from your account. You all may have received an email recently demanding $800+ in Bitcoin, or else your inappropriate web browsing activities will be revealed to all of your friends and business contacts. This happened to me at the sheriff's office, and I immediately contacted our IT individual who came. I sent the email to him to look at it to find out if this was legitimate, and he basically came back and said, Sheriff, you've been a victim of a spoof. Mr. Chairman, I believe that we may have even discussed you receiving similar emails in your official county email account. The Los Alamos Reporter newspaper last week revealed the following article. Rio Arriba County discovered Tuesday that it was a victim of a ransomware cyber attack which resulted in a significant number of the county's network servers, electronic files, and databases that had been encrypted and can't be accessed, reviewed, or edited. County Commission Chairman Leo Jaramillo told the Los Alamos Report Wednesday that the FBI is investigating the attack, and the county's insurance provider has assigned forensic investigators and other information technology experts to the case. The attack will prevent the county from performing some businesses until the matter is resolved. Meanwhile, the county is taking steps to put in place methods to conduct public business and to have little interruption as possible within the extent and source of the attack is being sought. The attack also affected the county's backup servers. The county now has to determine which files and devices are affected and or encrypted. At this time, county officials say the attack will not affect the June 2nd primary elections, as the county's voting machines are standalone and not connected to the network. The county clerk's office and the Secretary of State's office are collaborating on a system to transfer voting data that will bypass and not interact with the county's network. I would assume that this is pretty cost prohibitive to Rio Arriba County, being as I think they're only second to Sierra County in the state for being one of the poorest counties. Identity theft is the fastest growing white-collar crime in America today. The Federal Trade Commission reported that a stolen ID is used on average 30 times before the victim even finds out about it. This also means it can take up to 1 year before you become aware your identity has even been stolen. In fact, as I'm reading this, 12 people may already be an identity theft victim and not even know it. Scary to contemplate, isn't it? It is reported that there is a victim of cyber fraud or attack every 3 seconds in America alone. The Sierra County Sheriff's Office has averaged approximately 3.8 identity theft incidents every year for the past 10 years. Although the statistics are grim, many of us have taken proactive steps to protect ourselves and our families from such incidents. For almost 25 years now, as a recipient of taxpayer funds, I have abstained from electronic banking, and I do not store my personal information on my home computer or smartphone. I don't do online banking, and I do not store any of my personal password information or bank account information on any of those devices as well. You see, the best way to safeguard your identity is to know which types of personal information identity thieves are stealing to commit their crimes, and ensure that you safeguard your most vulnerable information. I've even gone as far as obtaining a prepaid debit card for those situations when I'm forced to purchase or make internet purchases, so that in the event my card information is compromised by the vendor, the thief will only get about $20 or $30 that remains on the card balance. I'm sure I'm not alone in some of the safeguards and precautions that I've taken in which to help safeguard some of my sensitive information. But as information security breaches by a Veterans Affairs employee resulted in the theft from a Maryland home of encrypted data affecting 26.5 million people, the agency has estimated that it will cost between $100 million and $500 million to prevent and cover possible losses. On May 3rd, a data analyst from the Veterans Affairs took home a laptop and an external hard drive containing unencrypted information, which resulted in 26.5 million veterans and Americans' information being compromised. On May 22nd, Veterans Affairs issued a statement about the theft, explaining the data stolen, including the names, social security numbers, dates of birth, and some disability ratings for those 26.5 million. On June 3rd, Veterans Affairs announced that the personal information of about 50,000 active duty personnel were included in the data stolen. I could go on and on and on about some of the things that we've seen with data breaches, but I would much rather first ask the Commission, what is the necessity that we adopt an ordinance and not just put this in policy? Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes,
I might. So I recommended an ordinance as opposed to just adopting a direct deposit in policy, because we want to make sure when we affect the terms and conditions of employment that we give our employees a notice and an opportunity to be heard, and the ordinance process allows for that. And so that's why I propose that it be done in that way. And I might defer to Serena as to why a direct deposit might be appropriate and might benefit the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Serena?
Well, I completely understand where the sheriff is coming from. I reached out to my HR affiliates, and we're about one of maybe 5 that are currently not doing direct deposit. I myself was receiving a paper check when COVID happened. It was easier and safer for us to go with direct deposit. I myself went to direct deposit to follow the policy, or to what was asked of the employees to do. This is just a standard procedure that's going across the counties. So I looked into it. It wasn't that I just asked Dave to draft an ordinance. I did research. My HR affiliates is wonderful, so most of them do have this in place. So.
Mr. Chairman, I might also add, Serena.
Sure.
Mr. Baker? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we did in section 5.1 of the draft ordinance include a provision that would allow someone to make a request for an exemption under the circumstances that are here addressed by the sheriff. So if someone does have those concerns and and states those concerns, then the Board of County Commissioners can, in reviewing those concerns, elect whether or not to grant exemption pursuant to section 5.1 of the ordinance.
I think also, Mr. Sheriff, if I may.
Please, no.
I'm probably one of the driving forces to move towards a policy of direct deposit. I worked 34 years for the Forest Service. In 1980, the federal government did not give us an option. They said your next check would be direct deposit. We need your routing number and your account number so your check can be deposited. And I was in Colorado at the time, and I took extreme umbrage to that, but it happened. And I do understand the concerns about your accounts being invaded and things that happen. We have to be one step ahead of the bad guys and have protections in our accounts, but it is a standard practice for inputting wages and salaries into people's bank accounts. The COVID situation brought it to a focus, and I asked the county manager to go ahead with changing all of those who had paper checks that were able, and I think that's the key, that were able to go ahead and sign up for a direct deposit. Mr. Manager, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I agree with everything that's been stated. I think COVID was the driving force. In government, there are a number of checks and balances with checks and signing checks. There's a lot of hoops that we have to go through for every check. We're trying to reduce that workload, reduce the number of people that we have to get together, particularly in a pandemic type environment that we're in and have been in. Getting a commissioner, getting a treasurer, getting somebody in, and getting a couple of signatures on the check. It's a very labor-intensive, time-consuming process. It happens every 2 weeks, and then that is above and beyond normal accounts payable. As Serena mentioned, this is where everybody's going with the direct deposits. And the county attorney pointed out that there is an exemption for employees. If they don't want to do it, they can basically petition the commission to exempt them. So there is that level of checks and balances even for those individuals that don't want to participate in the program.
Thank you, Manager Swingle.
Mr. Chairman, may I comment to that, please?
Yes, Sheriff, go ahead.
So in looking at the exemption, it's under direct deposit payments exemption 5.1. All full-time casual and temporary employees and elected public officials who receive compensation from the County of Sierra are mandated to have direct deposits of their compensation as of July 1, 2020. As we know, that's less than 2 weeks away.
Right.
However, they may request in writing an exemption from the direct deposit mandate to the county manager. Such a request should be presented to the Board of County Commission within 30 days. The Board of County Commission may grant such exemption by resolution and only for good cause. This is going in effect on July 1. It's going to take longer than 30 days for this process to go through for an exemption. So what happens in the interim to those individuals receiving hard checks?
I believe by policy that we already have an exemption. The ordinance just codifies it into that. Is that correct, Mr. Manager? So
Correct.
If someone has already said that they do not wish to do direct deposit, we have that on record.
Okay. One more question, Mr. Chairman. In reference to vendors that the county is currently using, that they do not have automatic electronic diversion of the funds for services, are there hard checks being issued to vendors?
Yes, there are currently hard checks being issued to vendors.
Maybe, Mr. Manager, you could answer what's the difference between having somebody come in to sign those checks that are required to be mailed out to vendors and having them sign the checks of the employees every other week with those checks as well. Is there?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the county manager, and if we can just pause that. I don't believe this is the appropriate process for a public hearing. The question and answer, we usually hear comments to it. We usually have presentations, and then we carry on. I understand it's a little bit different because it's an employee issue, but I just don't feel like this whole question and answer, this isn't a trial, this isn't a courtroom. I don't know that this is the appropriate method for a public hearing. At least it's never been one that I've sat in on.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Normally, we don't have that sort of a crosstalk. We direct our comments to the Board of County Commissioners and express our concerns and positions with respect to Board of County Commissioners. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate the point that was raised by the sheriff. And it is to take, or was proposed to take effect come July 1. But in light of section 437.7, it requires that unless it's an emergency ordinance, that it be put into effect 30 days later. So I'd request that section 5.1 be revised to reflect that it'll be mandated come August 1st, so that way we comply with that requirement of 437.7.
Okay. Sheriff, any final comments?
Just one more thing. I would revert to the county's IT policy. Under section 7, security and information preservation, county users who identify or perceive an actual or suspected computer security problem shall immediately contact the county information systems security manager. I don't believe that that is even identified in the policy as to who that person actually is. And D, access to county network resources shall be revoked for users identified as a security risk or have demonstrated a history of security problems. I would like to know what procedures are put in place currently as to how we've identified security risks within the county. Triadic core system is backed up every business day. Personal computers are not backed up as part of this process, so it's a responsibility of the department head to ensure that all vital information not stored on the core Triadic system is backed up to alternative storage such as an independent hard drive or USB drive. I have a question as to where that information is stored and where that is kept and who has access to that. The manager's office will contact Triadic and IT vendors to remove Triadic and email system access for any terminated employee. I've lost 2 employees within the past month, and I can tell you right now that we've had the opportunity to access both of those email accounts that are currently still active for those employees. If we can't even adhere to our own IT policy in the county, I have a extreme concern over whether my information pertaining to my bank account and my routing information is going to be safeguarded. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sheriff. Are there any other comments from the public regarding this ordinance? Hearing none, we'll close this session and take a short break, and we'll start the regular meeting in 10 minutes.
1.
Good morning. We'll call this meeting of June 16th of the Sierra County Commission to order. Due to the national, state, and county COVID-19 declared emergency and public health order dated March 23rd, 2020, as well as subsequent executive orders limiting public gatherings in the state, this meeting will not be physically open to the public. All members of the public will be able to attend and listen to the meeting via Facebook Live at the following: Facebook at SC Emergency Services, Facebook at Sierra County Sentinel KCHS Radio, YouTube.com/KCHS Radio, Twitter at KCHS Radio, Dish Network 371, and local radio KCHS 101.9 FM. We want to thank GPK Media for enabling us to get this meeting out to the public. Clerk Shelley, would you do a roll call?
Commissioner Paxson,
Here.
Commissioner Day,
Here.
Commissioner Luna,
Here.
Vice Chair Day, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. That's important to us, that we have allegiance to both the U.S. and to the state of New Mexico. We have with us today Mr. Chuck Wentworth from the Sierra County Sentinel, and we have 3 officers from New Mexico State Police: Officer Rodriguez, Officer Bancomo, and Officer Cortez. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us. Our condolences to your comrade who lost somebody up north, and we're always glad to see Captain Allgaier, so we'll look forward to him returning to our commission meetings.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. I'll relay that to him.
Officer Rodriguez, do you have anything to share with the commission?
No, not at this time. I just want to let you guys know that we are here. We're still working. We're doing everything we can to help out with the whole COVID response thing. I know that it's been a difficult several months. There's been a lot of misunderstandings with people out there in the public about what's going on with state police and the COVID thing. I think most recently is that we're driving around and issuing citations for people not wearing masks, which I can absolutely assure you is not the case, has not been the case. So I'm here to answer any questions that anyone might have on that, so I can provide some clarity on that. We've been dealing with a lot of that. We've been dealing with some of the things that have come up with the protests and some of the riots that have taken place throughout New Mexico. Anything I might be able to take care of for you guys, please let me know. That's what we're here for. My officers serve this community. It's what we do. Right now, I have several officers from around the state out on the lake trying to help someone that was a mishap out there. We're here for you guys. So I just ask that if you need something from us, reach out to us, let us know. We do what we can.
Thank you, officer. Any comments?
Thank you for your attendance both today and last week as well. You didn't scare us quite so bad today. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Day moves to approve the agenda as presented.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve the minutes from the May 19th meeting.
Commissioner Luna seconds.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
I brought my spectacles today so I can read. We have quite a few public comments. First one from Mike Skidmore, if you'll start the timer. Dear Commissioners, I'm writing to express my appreciation for Sheriff Glenn Hamilton's support of the First Amendment rally held on Sunday, May 17, 2020. Over 400 attendees held a parade for freedom from the county fairgrounds to the New Hope Revival Church located at 800 East 3rd. The parade train was over a mile long. The rally was to express our concerns with the governor's total disregard for our rights guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. The First Amendment guarantees free speech, free press, freedom of worship, freedom to peaceably assemble, and freedom to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The governor's shutdown of our state was and is unlawful. Her orders violate 3 of the 5 freedoms listed in the First Amendment. When government tries to deprive us of our constitutional rights, we must resist. The amendments limit the government, not the citizens. In Marbury versus Madison, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that any law that contradicts the Constitution is null and void and therefore illegal. The Department of Justice has recently sent letters to state governors stating, simply put, there is no pandemic exception to the Constitution and its amendments. The letters written to the County Commission attacking our sheriff reveal a woeful lack of knowledge of the law, the Constitution, and the duties of a county sheriff on the part of those who wrote them. It is especially troubling that a mayor pro tem of our city should be so ignorant of the law. Mr. Tolley should know better than to make statements he knows nothing about, seeing as he wasn't at the rally. The public officials should know better than to make accusations based on hearsay. I was there, however, and no onlookers were threatened. No one brandished weapons. The rally participants were disciplined, even when onlookers yelled vulgar obscenities trying to provoke an incident. It didn't work. Mr. Tolley wrote, and I quote, elected officials serve all their constituents, not just those who agree with them. Mr. Tolley should practice what he preaches. His letter proves he doesn't serve his constituents who were at the rally. Of the 400 people attending, about 30 were from out of town. The remaining were from Sierra County, the majority of whom were Tier C residents. He obviously doesn't serve them. His letter to the County Commission was divisive, antagonistic, and blatantly political. He called our Freedom Rally a despicable event, thereby calling each participant despicable. That statement proves Mr. Tolley doesn't represent all of his constituents. I feel Mr. Tolley is no longer capable of serving this community. Mike Skidmore. From Sheridan Fuss. Commissioners, it is my understanding that the sheriff is being accused of discrimination and asking for individuals to volunteer to be deputized to be available to assist in case they are needed at the Sheriff's Department. I have known Glenn Hamilton since he was elected and have never seen, heard, or know of any time that he has ever shown any sign or said a word against a person of any race, religion, or national origin. Glenn is an honorable and excellent sheriff who has brought many changes to make the department professional and one that we can respect and be proud of. There are few people in his position that have the knowledge of the law and the Constitution that Sheriff Hamilton has. His willingness to do whatever is necessary to make this county better is unequaled. Please stand behind him. Sheridan Fuss. Teresa Hawkins. Mr. Paxson, I'm writing to you to let you know that I support our local Sheriff Glenn Hamilton. He is simply trying to help our community in the event that people begin to be destructive, like what happened at the 2 churches here in town, the Civic Center and the Senior Center. If more people begin to do this, then he would have the help he needs to help our community. I had never heard anything negative about him till now, that he is trying to get the town back to normal. Mr. Paxson, please read this letter at the next Commissioners meeting, June 16th, in the public comments. Teresa Hawkins. Meiji Powie, thank you for reading into the record the responses of concerned citizens over the actions of our sheriff and a local church. I agree with Brandon Tolley. It is inappropriate to deputize church members at this point in time. It is also horrific to bring a commissioner from Otero County who stands up in front of a crowd of people, many who were armed, and state the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. I served this county for 20 years as the nurse manager at Sierra Public Health Office. I saw infectious diseases kill people. HIV, AIDS, influenza, hantavirus, the largest foodborne outbreak in New Mexico at the dam site. I treated people to prevent rabies after handling a rabid bat. Never did a disease kill just Democrats or Republicans. Never did we ask for party affiliation before treating people. People have to understand that this is a public health issue that does not respect age, political affiliation, or religious affiliation. We need to protect our neighbors through social distancing and wearing of masks in public. That is not Republican or a Democrat issue. I appreciate your thoughtfulness and common sense. I also appreciate you as a neighbor. Please stay safe and continue to work to keep Sierra County safe and sane. Meiji Powie. Jim Leffingwell. As a very concerned citizen of Sierra County, I find it appalling that the Sierra County Commission has attacked probably the best sheriff this county has ever had. Is the commission following in the footsteps of our illustrious governor, just doing what you feel like regardless of the law? Sheriff Glenn Hamilton has my full support. I request that this be read into the record of the June commission meeting. Mr. Leffingwell. Mary Ann Leffingwell. Commissioner Paxson, I'm writing in support of Sheriff Glenn Hamilton, and I want this read into the record at the June meeting. Sheriff Hamilton is an outstanding person with great integrity. I do not understand how Commissioner Luna thinks she has any authority over an elected official. I also question why the commission would want a meeting with the governor. I am appalled at the actions of the meeting at the May 19th, 2020 meeting, especially Commissioner Luna. Mary Ann Leffingwell. Gregory Cole. I respectfully request that my letter be read at the next county commission meeting in June as a citizen of Sierra County. I reviewed the Facebook video and would like to address first that I find Mrs. Luna's comparison of deputizing to toilet paper demeaning and offensive. Ms. Luna, you may find toilet paper precious, but we the people who have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, such as servicemen and women, LEOs, sheriff posse members, U.S. postal employees, etc., hold that oath, they take a lot more precious than the toilet paper. I'm writing on behalf of and support of our Sheriff Glenn Hamilton. He has done a tremendous job in representing the citizens of this county with fairness, respect, along with upholding his oath to the people he works for and serves through his demonstrated leadership in serving this county as sheriff. I strongly feel he has proven good record and the reason he was elected twice. I have seen the Facebook video comments and group comments from those that have been slandering and misleading, and can only say for us citizens who do not make assumptions, those select few who are and misleading information is only a reflection of their own character. I'm writing today in support of and in gratitude of our Sheriff Glenn Hamilton for both his service to our country in the military, but also his service as our sheriff. Respectfully, Gregory Cole. Tanya Reed. Dear Mr. Paxson, I respectfully request my letter be read in the next county commission meeting in June as a citizen of Sierra County. I watched the meeting held 5/19 that was posted to Facebook. I understand, Ms. Luna, that you take calls from the citizens of this county. However, as we all know, oftentimes social media can be misleading. Half-truths can be deceiving and damaging to the character of someone if assumptions are made and not asked directly. Ms. Luna, I know of you living here most of my life, but I do not know you personally. I apologize for using you as an example, but as a commissioner of the public, I would like to demonstrate how you too could easily be perceived on social media, resulting in calls to say our governor. I could assume as a commissioner you do not choose to adhere to the orders of our governor by social distancing and wearing a face mask from pictures I've seen recently posted during the graduation. Now, I'm not one to pass judgment on you or anyone else based off of social media comments or hearsay. I do find it distasteful to see an honorable public official be slandered by people who mislead others when all facts are not known or withheld by those who make accusations or assumptions. I have been very observant to notice it is the same citizen creating division with misinformation about Sheriff Glenn Hamilton. I am not a member of the church where the citizens were deputized. I did participate in the rally in support of our constitutional rights as a patriot of this country. I would like to also include that deputizing was not limited to the people of that church as it was made out on social media. The negative comments in the Facebook video and on Sierra County group pages does not represent all citizens of Sierra County. I would vote for this man again in a heartbeat if possible and trust him with my life. I have the utmost respect for Glenn Hamilton, who has proven to me in my own personal experience on an incident I encountered as to his character that includes not playing favoritism to anyone. Upon request, I would be glad to oblige to show proof of Mr. Hamilton upholding the Constitution for one of its constituents and why I have chosen to speak out on his behalf. Respectfully, Tanya Reed. Gloria Reed. Dear Sierra County Commissioners, I respectfully request you read my letter at the next commission meeting on June 16th. Thank you for this time to share my concerns. I am very disappointed to hear how much our Sheriff Glenn Hamilton has been attacked and slandered within our community and also at the last commissioners meeting. Sheriff Hamilton is a good man who has served our country and has been elected twice to serve our community. As sheriff, we should all feel blessed that he desires to keep our community safe by bringing us together, united, to protect and serve in the event of an emergency. How can being united and standing together with him be so wrong? This community has a long history of helping one another when there is a dire need, and I pray that we'd all desire to keep it that way. This is exactly the efforts our sheriff and his special deputizing of patriotic people within our community. I was privileged to grow up in an era where morals and respect for authority and others was demanded and valued. In looking around the nation today, I am sad to say that we are severely lacking those principles, and I only pray they return soon. Sheriff Hamilton is a man of excellent moral character who has worked tirelessly to clean up our community of crime over the last 6 years and has served and protected us well. I completely trust, respect, and support him in all of his efforts, and I thank him for a job well done. Sincerely, Gloria Reed. Tammy Lane. Sierra County Commissioners, I respectfully request that you read my letter at the next commission meeting on June 16th. Thank you for this time to express my indignation. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Paxson and Commissioner Day for having sought the facts from Sheriff Hamilton beforehand and for being respectful toward him at the meeting on May 19th, 2020. That is to be commended. Upon review of the Commissioners' meeting on May 19th, I am extremely appalled at the horrendous statements and allegations made toward Sheriff Hamilton by those uninformed and also by you, Commissioner Luna. Sheriff Hamilton is a veteran who continues to serve as twice elected sheriff, and he exemplifies the true meaning of an honorable, oath-abiding constitutional sheriff. He deserves our utmost respect. Commissioner Luna, you showed a complete disregard to seek facts beforehand, and your disrespect towards Sheriff Hamilton was on full display in your audacious attempt to persecute and reprimand him as if you somehow are his supreme authority. Your actions, in my opinion, were deplorable and should not be tolerated by any elected official. Having now bore witness to the lawlessness sweeping our nation, in the burning down of cities, the brutal attacks and murders of law-abiding citizens and officers, and the mindless desire to defund the police, I sincerely pray that you now see Sheriff Hamilton's foresight to protect us and serve our community by utilizing we the people lawfully in the event of an emergency. Our First Amendment was denied to us Christians, and that was a direct attack on the church and on God. As a Christian mother of 4, I am outraged and deeply concerned for our future. Without the protection of our U.S. constitutional rights, we will become a socialist nation, and the freedoms our veterans fought and many died for will no longer exist. As a professed Christian yourself, Commissioner Luna, your blatant disregard to uphold all our constitutional rights, along with your persecution of Sheriff Hamilton, proves out of character of a true Christian and appears to be a complete disregard of your oath of office. In conclusion, it is my opinion that you, Commissioner Luna, and those gossip mongers owe Sheriff Glenn Hamilton a sincere apology. Proudly sworn in Special Deputy Tammy Lane. Pat Kearney. Dear Commissioner Paxson, I stand in complete support of the actions taken by Sierra County Sheriff Glenn Hamilton relative to the orders, mandates, and demands being leveled upon the citizens of Sierra County and the citizens of the state of New Mexico in general by Michelle Lujan Grisham's administration. My support for Sheriff Hamilton in no way indicates an indifference to the ramifications of the current COVID-19 pandemic. My opinion is that irrational gubernatorial requirements and restrictions have been levied upon the citizens of New Mexico in the absence of a comprehensive fact-based evaluation of the nature of COVID-19 situation. Of note is the apparent lack of consideration for the general impact of historical respiratory viral contagions that annually afflict Americans versus COVID-19. The actions of the Grisham administration relative to COVID-19 and other recently constitutionally questionable actions bolsters my perspective that a pattern of behavior has been established which depicts the Grisham administration harbors a whole disregard, if not indignant contempt, for both the New Mexico and the U.S. Constitution. It is my opinion that the incessant erosion of our civil rights is a contagion that will potentially prove to be far more destructive for America than COVID-19. It is only those elected officials that embody the individual courage to counter such threats to American democracy that the concerned public can rely on. Via his actions from combating Second Amendment infringements to actions supporting our religious freedoms, to his efforts in attempting to instill some degree of sanity in the legislative debacle in Santa Fe, Sheriff Glenn Hamilton has demonstrated to me that he is one of those absolutely indispensable elected officials. New Mexico needs many more Glenn Hamiltons. I respectfully request that this correspondence be read into the record at the June Sierra County Commission meeting. Thank you for your consideration, Pat Kearney.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, it looks like you're at the end of your stack. I have forwarded an email from John Masterson to Bruce and asked that he send it out to the commissioners, and I believe it is appropriate that that letter be read into the record as public comment as well, if I may.
Go ahead, Commissioner Luna.
As you know, the brewery has become a community gathering place, and we're proud to host a diversity of locals and visitors. As a town living room, we stay out of partisan politics as much as we can and encourage our staff and guests to do so as well. Now that the mass deputization and Cowboys for Trump rally have made national, regional, and national news, we're hearing from friends, relatives, and visitors who consider moving to and investing in Sierra County worry that our community is becoming more radical, dangerous, even violent. As one put it, sounds like you've got a Ruby Ridge brewing down there. In a disturbing coincidence, the same week as these events played out, I was invited to a conference call with the city manager, Riverbend Hot Springs, the Arts Council, Chamber of Commerce, Main Street, and others to discuss the development of a new branding message and imagery for our town. Armed militiamen, mass deputizations of churches, and a sheriff encouraging citizens to violate public health orders. These are not features of a community that would be attractive to new visitors, investors, entrepreneurs, or retirees. For the sake of our local businesses and residents, I hope and trust you'll do what you can to discourage this unhelpful trend. Sincerely, John Masterson. Thank you.
We do not respond to public comment. We just make sure that it's heard. I think it's important that this commission and others previous to it do have concern that our citizens are able to speak their mind before the commission. These are turbulent times. I'm hoping that we can take a deep breath, allow each other our own space, and continue on. With that, we'll move to county officials' reports. Manager Swingle. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve consent agenda items A through H as presented.
Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Luna seconds.
Thank you for that, Mr. Day and Commissioner Luna. Motion and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Luna,
Yes.
Okay, now we'll go to the county official reports. Manager Swingle.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have a broadband presentation that starts at 10:30. Can we do them first and then do the reporting afterwards?
Absolutely. Will you introduce the broadband?
We need to
Do I need
Call
to
in.
call them? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, several months ago, almost a year ago,
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed.
Oh, the joys of remote
Enter
meetings.
your attendee ID number followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee number, press pound to continue.
It's still pound to them, it's not a hashtag.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Sorry, lean on this thing here.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, approximately a year ago, the county put out an RFP requesting proposals for broadband study be conducted in Sierra County, countywide. Finley Engineering and CCG Consulting were the recipients of that award and have completed their study and are providing a presentation, an overview of what they've done and the results of that study, kind of a Reader's Digest version of it. Andy? Andy?
Is that Mr. Finley?
No.
No, it's
What,
Andy. Are we still on?
It is. I'm here. Things are jumping around on me.
Okay, we're ready for you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll go ahead and kick the slide deck off here. Doug and I both have some just quick introductions, and we'll dive into the media. But we still have a half hour, Bruce, so we will look forward to that. Bruce.
We're ready, yes.
Go ahead.
I'm not Bruce.
Okay. All right, thanks Bruce and Jocelyn, and like Bruce said, I'm Andy Hines with Finley Engineering, and here to present the results of a broadband feasibility study. And on the phone with us, or actually on the WebEx with us, is Doug Dawson with CCG Consulting. If you want to say hi, Doug.
Hey, how are you doing?
We're good,
And,
thank you.
and I'll bring up the slide deck here. Yeah, and I actually go first on the slide, Andy. All right, so let's jump right in. So we identified some pretty major issues. The FCC mapping information for the county was just terrible. And by that, and that matters because the amount of grants that are made available to the county depends on the FCC. What we call maps, they're really a database of broadband coverage by all the ISPs. And so a big part of our study was to identify all those parts of the county where the ISPs say they have good broadband, but we don't think that they do. And so we created maps that show before and after. When it all comes down to it, I've worked all over the country. I've been doing this since the 70s, and your county has some of the worst broadband I've seen anywhere. I've worked with Waterloo County, up by Idaho, Washington border, equally uncovered, but broadband outside of your two main towns there is just dreadful. We actually interviewed a lot of folks in the county. We also did a very extensive survey, and your folks were just a pleasure to talk to with their stories about broadband were quite honestly a bit heartbreaking. So, I mean, your broadband is so important that one of the issues for rural businesses is they can't take credit cards. That's not as bad as broadband can get. This little teeny tiny amount of broadband to get a credit card process through. So final big finding is there were just huge broadband gaps. I mean, there's just a lot of holes that need to be filled to bring you up to speed with the rest of the places that have good broadband. Next slide. Andy, next slide. Are you hearing us? Yeah. Okay. There you go. So, I won't spend much time on this slide because there's an extensive amount of discussion in this study, but, I think that you all actually know why you hired us. You know all the things that are wrong with broadband, bad broadband, and those things all just became a lot more obvious during the COVID-19 crisis here. In your county, people are having trouble working at home. Students are really unable to connect to their classes from home. So, not having broadband is a pretty big deal. So, and the study has pages after pages describing all these various things. So, next slide. So we looked at two scenarios. One is just coverage with consequences in Elephant Butte, and then we looked at the whole county, including those two. And then we really looked at three. We looked at the just rural areas and then the whole county. And the reason to do that was just to see, we moved the guests to be very different in the towns and the rural areas. So we'll talk about those results here in a while. So next slide. Potential customers came out of your GIS data. Andy will chime in and have you have some of the best GIS data we've seen. It was really excellent. So we have a lot of faith in it. So in the rural areas, there's 2,925 potential customers in the cities, almost 6,200, and 9,100 total potential people in the households in the county, households and businesses that could be potential broadband customers. Next slide. And I think this is where you take over, Andy. Yep. So, thanks, Doug. So as part of working out the design and follow up on what Doug said on the GIS data, we do a lot of feasibility and design work. And when it comes to GIS data from a municipal or a county, sometimes we get good information. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to get. Pleasure working with all your folks there at the county, working with your data to be able to sort through single-family homes and businesses versus other entities out there made the granularity of data that we can parse out for design and for those purposes on costing make things a lot nicer. So what we did is look at building an all-fiber network throughout the county. And so as you see the numbers sitting there, both rural and urban, for the mileages and the dollar amounts you see indicated below, and those will circle back around to those on the back end when we talk about some of the financial impacts of these numbers. When we evaluated what we do, we thought about different technology platforms, but ultimately settled into fiber, just because of the resiliency and the future enabling capabilities of it, and that has a lot to do with bandwidth, the cost of the network over extended life cycle, and then also right now, the availability of funding is very, very much geared towards all fiber networks. Big influence in our decisions as we look at technology. For the fiber design, looked at all considerations, but ultimately settled in on aerial fiber construction, primarily due to terrain and topography and costs associated with it. And that will be on the two electric providers, TRC Electric, Sierra Electric, and El Paso. Again, got good GIS data from TRC Electric and Sierra. El Paso has a smaller footprint, and we're able to adequately understand where their infrastructure was to complete the design. We also, in consideration of aerial fiber, considered make-ready, and that is the process where we have to evaluate the pole structures to understand will they meet code requirements with the addition of another utility on it, and that's both for clearance from ground and also loading. So those factors are also in our numbers as well. The network design, it is a passive optical network where we use splitter technology to enable the service to up to 32 customers in this design. It helps us keep fiber sizes lower, and it's a cost-efficient way of building a network. We also allow for fiber growth in this model, so we have spare fiber in it, and that can be for other use cases, whether it be wireless technology that may want to buy bandwidth off of the network, or other emerging technology, such as Internet of Things or other use cases we don't even understand right now. Again, on GPON, we settled on the 2.5 GPON that is fully capable of provisioning a gigabit broadband speeds, quite often done. And the network is also designed in such a way that it can be upgraded and migrated to future PON technologies down the road as they become more cost efficient over time. One of the main things I know when I was out there, and I know Doug picked up on this too, was obviously just the initial offering of being able to have a broadband service, but also redundancy and resiliency of the network, especially and Truth or Consequences and Elephant Butte. That was one of the items that I know came up. We were able to incorporate a redundancy ring inside those municipal areas. Because of the nature of, the very rural and scattered nature of the rest of Sierra County, the rest of the county becomes a spoken wheel, and then we can't, create ring architectures out of that network quite easily from a physical perspective. Optically, we can make it happen, but on a physical perspective, we can't. The other big component is the redundancy of ISP connections. Based on your location in the state of New Mexico, most of those network connections are going to come from the south or the east. We allowed for additional backbone connectivity to the east side of the county at an existing Verizon POP, and also down towards the south end of the county towards Array, where there's existing CenturyLink meet points. On the east side of the county, we also left additional fiber to be able to extend on out in a dedicated nature to Spaceport America, knowing that that is probably one of the critical infrastructures that may have additional fiber meet points come to it later on to further enhance the resiliency and redundancy of the network. Just a quick snapshot of what the ring looked like. Again, this is just based on all available data. Should this ever be built, there may be a few tweaks and changes to it just based on an on-site review of it, but for functionality purposes, that is incorporated into your design from a technical perspective. Doug, working back to you on some of the 477 data.
Yeah, this is the MCC data that I talked about earlier. And what happened, which this shows here is that is the places that are green, ISPs are claiming those areas have a broadband that is at least 25.3, and for the yellow areas, they're claiming that at least 10.1. We did a lot of speed tests and surveys and talked to people. We didn't find anybody in rural areas who was even getting 10 megabits downloads. The fact is, none of this stuff exists. What Windstream has done has basically reported marketing speeds because they sell people a broadband connection that says up to 30 megabits, but they might only be delivering 2 megabits. And so the speeds that people are really getting are far slower than these. Unfortunately, the FCC looks at those green areas and goes, you can't, we're not going to give you grant money for those areas. And so, because they're saying that those speeds are already adequate there. So that's one of the things we're going to have to tackle after the study's over is somehow get this data cleaned up. Next slide. So CenturyLink has a little area that's bad, but they don't cover that much of the county, but they've got that little area that comes and everything, so we're reported. That's also not very fast. Next slide. The TDS one is actually pretty accurate, but this just shows you another one of the inaccuracies in the mapping, and that see those, there's 2 bright green areas where there's no streets in them. The FCC made the report by census block. Those areas are, there's nobody in them that can really get those speeds, but yet the FCC data reporting method makes TDS report a bigger area than they actually serve. But in the city, I mean, TDS really does have speeds in range of, and their speed tests we got, they're in a range of 100 megabits just as they're advertising. So their speeds actually look to be somewhat close to what they're telling the public. So next slide. This was another big killer because this was a Y-Power, which is a wireless ISP, and they're claiming a lot of, again, the fat for that band. You know, they're claiming the green stuff is over 25, the blue stuff is between 10 and 25. We couldn't find any customers that had speed that fast because they are broadcasting from towers on top of big hills, and by the time you get down to where people live, the speeds are much slower than this. There might be some customers, I mean, we just didn't find any, but certainly their coverage is nothing like this. Next. This is Andy's slide of what it really looks like. So the green area is where TDS is at. All of the rest of the county, we believe, is below 10 megabits per second. We just never found another customer who's getting speeds faster than that. So you take all those other bright colors and all the other maps, and it's not true. So this is why we say your broadband is so bad, because other than those 2 bad ones, nobody else has broadband. So next slide, and I think we head back into the. Now before I go any further, I want to make a little speech here. All of this work we did here for these mappings and for Andy's engineering work and for my financial work, we did this for the ISPs. So after the study's done, if any ISP wants to come into the grant there, we can feed them all of this work we've done. And the whole point of this study was to help them be convinced that there's a viable business plan in the county. So you know, we're more than willing to work with those ISPs now that this study is done. We can parse this any way they want. They just want to look at a little corner of the county, we can do that for them. So our study had market research. Market research had an online survey for both residents and businesses. Basically, everybody had a lot of interest in getting better broadband. Nobody disliked the idea of somebody bringing fiber to the county. You know, the business questionnaires just showed very high distress of businesses. The businesses are not in truth or consequences, have really major problems. In fact, we've also got a lot of businesses in town who are not, speeds are not fast enough, or else they're having what they call variability issues, where the speeds come and they go and they're not always steady all the time. Which a real problem is outside those towns. Next slide. So the broadband gaps, I won't spend much time on this, but you know, it's worth pointing out that, you know, New Mexico has the second worst broadband in the country according to the FCC. Of course, the FCC's data includes all that green stuff that's not really there. If they really measured you correctly, it might be worse. And of course, Theodore County fell right out in the middle of all the counties in Mexico as far as broadband coverage. Again, that's using the FCC data. The fact is, outside of the towns, you have none at all. So, you know, the study has a very long section on broadband gaps. There's, you know, the speeds are very high in the county. I mean, the prices are high in the county. You know, we found a lot of folks who could really use some training to use broadband better. There's a lot of folks who have got computers in their homes. So there, you know, even if you get fiber network, we're not finished because we have to fill all those other gaps as well. So, next slide. And this is to tell you that it's a moving target. It's very easy to think that, well, we don't have very good broadband here today, but what's happening is you're falling behind really fast. These are the average amounts of downloads nationwide, measured by a company called Openvault, who sits all the major internet pops. In 2017, the average home downloaded 215 gigabits per month. Your folks with a 2 megabit DSL connection are not downloading that much because you can't do that much. By the end of the first quarter of this year, when we was the first one with COVID, that had jumped up to 405 gigabits. That's the average nationwide. That's a huge amount of data. I mean, that's, in my household actually uses more than that. I mean, that's a real normal number for people that have good broadband. Next slide. The same is true for speeds. Just as the average download speed this year is 93 megabits per second. I mean, TDS is just a hair above that. All the rest of the county is obviously massively behind that. That's your speed is the biggest gap. It's just terrible. You can see that's a moving number. The average speeds keep getting better because they're building fiber across the country, and the cable companies in the big cities have been upgrading their networks. A lot of speeds now have a base speed of 200 megabits. So speeds are getting faster in the rest of the country, but they're not getting faster as Sierra County. So next slide. Again, subscribe speed, 54% of all the people in the country already are buying 100 megabits or faster product, another 24%, 50 to 75. You know, only 22% of people have something less than 50%, and that's all the people in the rural area of the county are in that category. The other thing is a lot of, you know, we're now seeing nationwide finally, a lot of houses are actually buying gigabit broadband. It's now up to 2.8%, 3.75% here at the end of March. Nationwide, all houses people subscribe to gigabit. The folks on those gigabit connections have a lot of things that folks can do, so you're falling behind what's happening in the rest of the world. So, next slide. So here's the major business plan assumptions. And again, we base these on what ISPs want. And if a given ISP comes to us, we can very quickly to match the prices. We did look at all the existing prices in the county and all this sort of issues and salaries and that sort of stuff. So I think our business plan probably represents what their costs really are pretty close to. And we can tweak it for any one of them quite quickly, I think, when they get a business plan out of this. We assumed that the primary products were 60, 75, 90, that might be 100 megabits, 250 megabits, and a gigabit. Traditional bank financing, because the ISPs are going to do this, they're going to be commercial ISPs, they're not likely to be government entities. We assumed a 70% penetration rate in the rural areas, 50% in the city. The 70% is quite honestly conservative. We do surveys here all the time at CCG, and we've seen penetration rates between 70% and 85 to 90% in actual fiber builds. So the nationwide penetration of is now about 87%. So there's no reason to think that the folks in the county wouldn't jump over to fiber, because the fiber price I showed at 60 is cheaper than what they're paying today for the alternatives. There's folks in your county paying $400 or $500 a month to use their cell phone in their house. I mean, that's crazy pricing. So, for broadband, I think they'll cool for the cell phone data. So people are going to just flock over if somebody builds fiber at $60. So, we also looked at a whole range of all the big variables that ISPs care about: interest rates, network costs, levels of grants. And that was really one of the key things we wanted to see, is how much grant funding was needed to make it work in the county. So, next slide. Here's the network cost. There was an earlier slide that had just fiber numbers. That top line, the big number, is fiber plus fiber drops. Fiber drops the fiber that goes from the street to a home or a business. We also need to put in electronics, put in some huts, and then operational access or vehicles, computers for employees, and all that sort of stuff. It works out in the rural areas, $9,000 per capita, $12,000 per customer. We were just on a call with an electric co-op in Missouri, and their numbers were almost identical for the rural numbers. The fact is, that's a very typical rural number. In the cities now, and truth or consequences, no, the costs are far lower, $3,000 a capacity and $6,000 per customer. And they average out to the numbers on the right, 4,800 and 8,500. Those are key numbers because they sort of tell you whether you're going to need grant financing or not. So, next slide. So our conclusions were that, first of all, you need a lot of grant funding. It turns out that at a 70% penetration for the rural area, you would need 65% grant funding. That's actually sort of normal. It's just, like I said, like that other crop we just looked at, we've worked with places where the amount of grant funding needed is 80 and 85%. So 65% is not as high as I thought it would be. When I first started working on you, I thought we would see a gigantic number. But it turns out that Andy's numbers are lower than a lot of other similar sized counties because some of the far reaches of the counties, it's not as many roads. They all come along sort of the same string of roads, and there's a lot of areas that don't have roads in them. So the number of customers per mile is actually lower than in some of the counties that have grids on their maps. The cities don't require any grant at all. Somebody could come to the cities, if they only get 45% of the customers, they make money. So that's an opportunity just sitting there for somebody that wants to work on TDS. The amount of grant, if you combine the two together, the amount of grant drops to 29% if somebody wants to tackle the whole county. The cities pulled down, the cities help to subsidize the rural areas. And of course, we found that the most important statistics are the most important numbers for the penetration rates and prices. The interest rate is not that important because we're spending a lot of this funding from there. Next slide. And just, I guess for the last, I don't have to go back at it, but an editorial comment, those amounts of grant funding, we believe are reasonably findable. For areas like that's the kind of grants that we've seen made available. So the good news is I believe that people are funding that. There are other FCC policies that approach you. One is those maps we talk about where the speeds are limited because those speeds stop you from getting grants or ISPs from getting grants. Also, the county gave away money last year to buy us that to satellite company for a good chunk in the middle of the county. And those areas are now off limits to other people getting additional grants. And of course, Viasat was already available to everybody. Everybody in your county who has them absolutely hates them. We didn't find one customer who had anything nice to say about them. Part of that is your terrain. In order for you to get a good signal from a satellite, you have to have a really good vision of the sky with all your mountains and stuff around. A lot of folks don't get a very good shot at them. And so, because the satellites are actually kind of far out north and stuff. So that, that, in your county, Viasat's not a very good option. They were given grant money in your county last year, which is sad and unfortunate. So, next slide. So, here's our actual recommendations. So, I think the county needs a broadband goal. You may already have it because your RFP is very well written. I mean, if you really want broadband, that's got to be something you talk about all the time. In order to get that done, it's got to be something that comes up in almost every other media board. There's stuff that I've put in here to get done that probably needs some staffing resources. That staffing doesn't have to be county. You could be putting together a volunteer panel, volunteer group of ISP people who want to see things happen, but there's definitely some follow-up work needed here. And that study is very detailed what I think the follow-up work is. The big thing is to reach out to ISP partners, get this study out in their hands. Andy and I are glad to talk to them and talk them through this. We think there's potential here, so we would like to talk to them to come into your county. So we know there's already one grant been filed for part of your county that we won't know, I guess, it's later in the year if they got it. That doesn't cover it anywhere near the whole county. Is it over in Eastern now, Danny? Danny?
Correct.
So
Yeah,
that would
it's the western side.
on the western side, so that would cover part of the county. There's a lot more to do. Educating the public, I think would really, the folks we talk to are just so pro forma. I think they want to hear more. You could just report out to them. You might want to, maybe even have some public meetings. Of course, there are grants around to do other stuff. There's grants for training people on how to use a computer. There's grants now to buy computers to get in more students' hands and that sort of thing. So there, you might want to look into some of those grants that are not building broadband, but they're helping to support broadband. And finally, consider providing technical assistance to businesses. The businesses in the rural areas were really struggling. A lot of your trust places, the ones who couldn't even get their credit cards to work, I think a good IT person could help them make that work. They need help. We know people in other really remote communities at least get their credit cards working. So I think it would be very useful to some of them to get some help. Some of the folks are just a joy to talk to, and they're like, boy, I don't know about that computer stuff. But their businesses are really important to the county. So, next slide. And then, believe it or not, push the incumbents to do better. You might convince TDS to expand outside the city limit of truth or consequences law. We've seen it happen in other places, so let's not fail to ask them to do that. We want to push all the people in the county to take advantage of Lifeline, which means people with low income get a discount. We know that the two telephone companies do that, but they don't advertise it. So there's a lot of people in the county who could be getting $10 off their bills right now and don't know that they can do that. And we're not sure, we couldn't find it, I don't think PBS is getting that discount. If they are, they don't advertise it very well either in your place. So, we certainly, this is, I'm sure you want people to look at this, it's not called the homework gap, getting more Wi-Fi hotspots out there and more computers. One thing is to consider providing county grants, and they don't have to be big. But sometimes when they're giving out these $10 million federal grants, the grant company gets a lot of extra points and gets the money easier if you guys are putting in $50,000. And so you might want to really give that some thought. I know the things are really tight there, and then after COVID it's going to be tighter, but if that really makes a difference in getting broadband, give that some thought. I mean, I'm not suggesting you make big grants. Sometimes little tiny matching grants show local support, and that's what the grant people want to see. And obviously be persistent, because you're not going to get one solution for the whole county at once. You're going to have to, every time a piece gets done, you now got to turn around and go, let's go talk to somebody and then go to the next one. So, I talked about it fast today. We could have done this summer, but, is that the last slide, Andy?
There it is.
Okay, so questions?
Commissioners? Gentlemen, your presentation's overwhelming. We knew that our situation, this is Jim Paxson, the chairman. We knew that our situation was terrible because our constituents tell us that every time we bring it up. And when you go west, places like the little Winston store, when they go days that they can't do a credit card for gas and diesel and groceries, it's kind of a sad thing. Are there, I guess the first thing we need to do is challenge the FCC assumptions that are being put forward on this.
I'm going to suggest that you write letters to those carriers and write letters to the FCC with Andy's map and going, here's what we think is real here. Because the good news is some of the grants you can challenge. So one of the things we recommend is we set up a speed test site for you. We're going to recommend that you keep that up forever and periodically advertise and get folks to take speed tests. Because we can use those speed test results to challenge maps in the future. So allow you to challenge those speeds. And so we need to be prepared for that. But even right now, I think you need to write to the FCC and go, our county is getting really injured by the fact that these ISPs here are over-reporting broadband speeds. So absolutely, you need to be proactive on it. So I think I'm trying to get your state and federal legislators, I mean, everybody needs to hear about that, because that's one of the things that's holding you back.
Well, I think that we can do that. Manager Swingle, I see you taking notes, so do you have any other suggestions? Are there outfits out there just waiting to invest if we were able to secure some grants?
It's more the other way around. You have to kind of find an ISP who's already in business. They are out there. There's certainly several ISPs in New Mexico who ought to be interested. A lot of times they don't know they're interested until they see the numbers, because the ISPs don't have real deep pockets to go out and do these kind of studies we just did at first. So we've done all their hard work for them. We've now shown them what the opportunity is in Sierra County. So hopefully they would look at this and go, hey, I can spend that much grant money, let's go do that. So the answer is, yeah, there's multiple ISPs that we can show this to. So.
Other thoughts? Manager Swingle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have a lot of work to do over the next several years to move this project forward. But having public meetings, getting letters out to the FCC, and questioning the data, encouraging the public to continue to use the speed test. That data will be retained and it'll be useful for the foreseeable future. One thing that they discussed is kind of creating a broadband committee for the region. It's not just a Sierra County issue, it's an Elephant Butte, a Williamsburg, a TRC, Sierra County. It's private sector, it's residents, there's a lot of people that are impacted by this. And that's something we should probably look at and consider creating and organizing.
Agreed.
Some positive points. The GIS data that we retained was extremely accurate and helpful for them, which made their job easier, the process easier. We want to thank the USDA for the grant that we received, the $150,000 grant. We didn't have a lot of time. They did not have a lot of time. It was plenty of time for them to complete the study. However, we all would like to have done this at a much slower pace than what we had to accomplish it under. Jocelyn put together a great RFP on this project. We had a number of really good companies. We had a pretty informed team evaluate those proposals that were submitted, and Finley and CCS were just the exceptional company who have done this, hundreds of these studies around the country. So I think you've probably all had a chance to at least start reading the draft report, the final report. It does take some time to read through it and decipher everything that's identified in it, but I think our providers are not doing us a service in rural New Mexico, particularly Sierra County, by the way they report. It's not necessarily their fault. It's the federal government allows this type of reporting to go on, and if one person in an area gets a certain speed, the entire area can claim that speed, when it's not necessarily true. It may be one or two people versus the other 2 or 3 or 5,000 that have a much more reduced speed. Those types of things need to be corrected. I have talked to a number of our congressional delegation on that very topic, and to make them aware of it, that it's problematic, and it is absolutely disingenuous to rural America.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Lynn.
I think a lot of it comes from lack of knowledge of the consumer. We pay for a product and we expect to get it, and if they tell us this is what we're gonna get, we just expect to get that. But I will say too that I think the more people, like the presentation we just heard, the more people who go and do the speed test, they can utilize that information and take it back to their providers, as well as the county utilize it to get those providers to report accurate numbers to the FCC, so we can get more grant money, so we can help fix this problem in the long run. So while we have a captive audience, if you go to sierraco.org, then you can click on the services tab. There is a direct link to that broadband speed test, and so that will help us all right there.
Yeah, to reiterate that, if you just go to the county webpage, you can take the test. It's pretty simple and quick, and we need folks to participate to do that, to give us more data. So that's a good thought, Commissioner Linden. Commissioner Day?
We would love everyone in the county to take this speed test. That's fine. That would be awesome.
We'll promote that for sure. Thank you.
I do want to commend Mr. Bruce for the committee. I think it's very crucial to get both government officials and private sector officials in the same room and discuss it. And for me, I think Paul would be an excellent person on that committee. He knows this like the back of his hand, so that's definitely something I would recommend moving forward to be on that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and I think Paul seems like chairman material to me.
I see the smile on his face. So.
Well, Andy and Doug, this was like turning the light on, and it really raised our awareness and supported our suspicions that we were pretty well being mistreated by the FCC report. And we'll take action to begin to combat that, but we appreciate the information that you've developed, and thank you for your efforts. We will continue to stay in touch with you and see what we can develop over the future. Any other comments?
I would like to say one last thing. This is Doug.
Okay.
My folks fell in love with your money, so when this whole thing's over, we're going to come out and visit.
Well, come see us, Sierra County.
He kind of stole my thunder on that. I told my wife we needed to go down there sometime, so we're kind of in the same boat.
Please do. It's a wonderful place to find a little spot and locate and enjoy life. So we would love to have you down here.
Absolutely.
Thank you very sincerely
Absolutely.
for your efforts and for the information in this survey and the report.
Yeah, and one last thing I wanted to add here, Doug, is, by all means, everyone there at Sierra County knows how to get a hold of us. If you have any follow-up questions or anything, Doug and I still, we do these all the time. We're actually kind of knee-deep in another feasibility study there for another entity in New Mexico. So once travel is a little bit easier, I'm going to be back out that way myself. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're always working with this stuff.
All right. Thanks again. We'll close this part of the reports. And then we will go to county official reports. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'll start with the detention report. I'll be doing the reporting for most of the departments just because of the pandemic, and we are not wanting staff to attend the meeting to the full extent possible. Currently, there are 36 inmates in custody. 33 are in Luna County, 1 is in Socorro, and 2 inmates are at the Department of Corrections having behavioral health evaluations. Our average population last month was 33 inmates per day. We had a total of 36 arrests for the month, and we have, for the budget, we have an housing expenses of $55,000 for Luna County, $55,380. We will receive a bill very soon from Socorro County. We hadn't received it as of this morning. DOC and DLC Behavioral Health, we have no cost anticipated for the month. COVID-19 continues to damper the programming that takes place within detention as well as in the IDP program. That's very limited on the programming that's going on through IDP, and virtually all programs have been suspended in Luna County. Speaking of Luna County, we had 2 staff members thus far have been tested positive for COVID-19, and they did have 1 federal inmate that was also tested positive for COVID that was transferred to Otero County. None of our staff have had positive tests, and none of our inmates have experienced a positive test at this point. Luna County has taken tremendous steps to protect the inmates while they're in custody, as well as Virginia Lee and the staff here have done an exceptional job in decontaminating the facilities, implementing policies and procedures and protocols to prevent any contamination. The IDP grant ends at the end of this month, and we're closing that out as we speak. The RISE grant, which is the new name of the IDP grant, and that stands for Reach, Intervene, Support, and Engage. That grant will begin in July 1st, 2020. We have the DOJ grant, and that is in place this fiscal year, and it will continue for a total of 3 years. We have funding. The new grant, the Behavioral Health Investment Zones grant, that grant will start on July 1, and all of these grants are behavioral health, substance abuse, suicide, particularly teen suicide, and you'll be making some decisions on some of those grants a little later. But Virginia's done a fantastic job of finding grants to address behavioral health and substance abuse in this community. Very early on, those grants were for inmates, whether they be incarcerated and upon release for a period of time. Newer grants are now for everybody in the community that's at risk. So kudos to Virginia and her staff. As far as the administration has been very busy getting the documents together for the pre-audit as well as for the audit. It's a very labor-intensive and time-consuming process. We're off to a very good start. We hope to have a very good audit like we did this current year. The staff's working diligently, though, to get that information, put it together for the auditors. We're in a point where we're either closing out or doing grant reporting for a number of our grants this year. I think this is the most grants we've likely ever had as a county, certainly the largest dollar values that we've ever experienced in the county. It's very time consuming doing the reporting and the closeout of those grants. So everyone's engaged in that. The census packets from the U.S. Census Bureau have been delivered to residents in Sierra County, and they've been put on doorsteps basically for those individuals that have P.O. boxes. As of yesterday, over 90 million households have responded to the census thus far. Sierra County, our response rate as of this morning is 33.6% response rate. That's not alarming when you factor in that the vast majority of our residents are just now receiving the packets at their home. We have so many residents that have P.O. boxes that weren't eligible for the initial phase of the census. So we're looking forward that people will continue to participate in the census. We would like to, get a very high response rate because it's very important to this community. $37,500 is basically per person that's not counted in the census, and that really adversely affects our community. As you heard today, we've been engaged in the broadband study, and Jocelyn's currently doing the closeout of that grant now. It's been submitted to the USDA. They have to approve this study as well for the funding, and just every indication of looking at the quality of the report, we'll have no issues there. We continue to move forward with the flood drainage master plan and that reporting, and that's a very long, comprehensive process that we're going through, but we've got a lot of county, a lot of drainage issues to look at. So, but that's moving along very well. The assessor's office, they're largely completing the protest and sales and trying to get back to normal functions in the office. We have not allowed them to go out and do field work in the community. We didn't want any of the offices doing field work during the real critical period of the pandemic. We're starting to release that as long as we have, protective measures in place for the staff and for the public. Emergency management operations continue to endeavor through this pandemic. You will see there's a resolution to continue the emergency declaration. We want to make sure that all of our activities, our costs, are reimbursable, and for that to be possible, we need to maintain the emergency declaration. So we still have a lot of time and effort, energy, and expense involved, and we want to make sure that we can recoup that. Paul continues to communicate pertinent information to the community through social media and KCHS. That's done on a daily basis and on many occasions multiple times a day. We created the food bank at the initial outset of the outbreak and the pandemic. For those individuals that weren't comfortable going out and going shopping, they didn't have the money or the resources to buy food. And thus far, we have served 7,938 meals to area residents. The large numbers have been in the Array and Truth or Consequences areas. But we've literally provided meals all over the county. Eloy, Ernie, Mike, and Spike have really taken the lead on this and have been delivering the meals very frequently. We still have to go on Wednesdays to pick up all the PPE for all the orders of the medical facilities, medical providers for the area, as well as the other municipalities and emergency responders. Tomorrow we'll be going and picking up another significant load, and I know that we have orders for the following week as well. We'll be picking up substantial orders. But thus far, the Veterans Home, we provided 5,335 N95 masks, over 4,400 gowns, over 3,600 procedure masks, 9,000 gloves, and over 1,200 face shields. Sierra Vista Hospital, over 1,100 procedure masks, 1,800 N95 masks, 345 gowns, and over 50 sets of gloves. Sierra Healthcare, over 400 KN95 masks, 140 N95 masks, 250 procedure masks, 100 gloves, and 25 face shields. Ben Archer put in for 300 N95 masks, 800 procedure masks, 100 face shields, and 800 gowns. And we anticipate many more orders for the next several weeks. PPE has now read some posts recently, as recent as early this morning, that facilities just don't have the personal protective equipment, and it's causing this increase in cases that we've seen in New Mexico. Nothing could be farther from the truth. We have ample personal protective equipment. What the state, Department of Health, EOC has in place it's been outstanding, and they get it to us quickly. And if they can't get it to us quick enough, we have a good supply that we retain at the county level that we are giving to the entities, and then we replace it when the shipment comes in. But the spike that we've seen in cases, I think I'll address that a little later in the update. Facility management is repaired. A couple of air conditioners have been involved in weed control. They assisted the clerk's office with the election and moving voting machines to the various sites and returning them back to the clerk's office. Of course, they're distributing the food, and they're providing routine maintenance and for the county buildings, as well as doing a lot of decontamination in our buildings on a daily basis. The flood director, I won't report all of his activities that he's been involved in, but he's currently working with emergency management operations as needed, and we bring him in. He's been extremely helpful, and his expertise is very much appreciated. He's conducted 8 floodplain determinations for the month, reviewed 6 building permits for floodplain compliance, 2 in Tier C and 4 in the county. And he's engaged in levee repairs at this time, particularly the Animas Creek area. Misdemeanor compliance program, they have 80 clients that are in pretrial compliance. They have 30 clients that are in electronic monitoring. Most of those are pretrial and some probation. 70 clients in the DWI compliance, and 50 clients in misdemeanor compliance. The road department's completed the chip sealing in Las Palomas Road, and they're going to fall seal it in a few days to the end of the month. Blade operators are all out on their districts at this time. However, they were working with the road crews, doing a lot of work in repairs, potholes on the Upham Road. Ronnie's continuing to do most of his work is with flood control and the flood projects. And we have looked at it and we made the necessary changes to the budget, or in the process of making the changes to have more funding from flood for one person that's doing flood work, most likely Ronnie.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Luna.
So, did we pull Ronnie off of his district? Did we switch him out with somebody? 'Cause he
We
was.
have.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, yeah, we have another operator out there.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I just wanna make sure.
They're
You said
covered.
all the districts are covered, I just wanted to
Yeah. Yep.
make sure we were there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, now just kind of an update on COVID-19 and the cases in New Mexico. This is as of last night. The state's reported 9,845 cases while performing 206